Can we talk a little bit, just because to give this present case its due diligence, what's going on here in terms of the potential tax fraud piece of the hush money case? Can you talk to me? Can you talk to me about how
I think it's actually, instead of tax fraud, it's false filings. So
okay.
with the New York State Tax Authority. So that's a crime, to file a false instrument. It's a fancy way of saying filing a false document that contains false information. And if you read the statement of facts, and I think D.A. Bragg sort of glossed over it a little bit in his press conference, and then there were, mischaracterizations of tax. It's not that complicated, but the $130,000 that was reimbursed to Michael Cohen that he gave to Stormy Daniels, he was paid back double that.
We have actually a graphic. Can we please bring it up as you are explaining this? Because I think it helps, right?
There you go. So he was paid basically double that and did not list it as an expense. He listed it as income for his taxes. You might say, well, that's silly because he's going to be taxed on it. In fact, he was. But by giving him that extra money, he actually made a profit. So he got back his $130,000 plus more money. So that's where that comes from.
I have a little bit of different spin on this.
Yes, let's hear your assessment.
Because we don't see the words tax fraud
exactly
anywhere in this.
Yes, very clearly.
And we also don't know what Michael Cohen actually did on his tax return. We know that the payments were made to him. They came to $420,000. There should have been, they were grossed up so tax could be paid on it. We don't actually know what he did. But I think the more important thing when we look at this is that the tax allegations are not a straight tax fraud. A lot of people think that the Trump Organization had a legal fee that then they put on their tax return. We, I think, have reason to believe for three reasons that didn't happen. One, Alan Bragg could have alleged it, and he didn't.
Okay.
Secondly, the New York Times in 2020, we got a trove of tax return information.
Yes.
In that was the W-2s and payroll information and other information that led us to believe that there was not a bright light payment to Michael Cohen. We don't see it coming up in his W-2s.
So they don't file for it.
And then the third thing, the Trump Organization lawyers, and they have said that it wasn't filed, but it doesn't in this case necessarily matter if it was filed with the tax authority. And the reason why is because there's a books and records violation that they have. They show that they conspired on the books and records to disguise it as a tax payment. And the hope here is you've got the misdemeanor, the tax, the falsification of business records.
Right.
And then where it goes from there is you can potentially elevate that to a felony simply because of the conspiracy.
The intent
or just the intent to defraud is enough that they don't actually need to do it. And we don't see any evidence. And I think the most powerful statement that there is was never filed with the tax authorities. Alvin Bragg didn't say it. We may later down the road, I'm not going to say it's never going to happen, but there's some strong evidence that suggests. And I think one of the reasons maybe why is they had an accountant at the tax organization. Somebody came in, an outside firm. It was a lawyer, Morgan Lewis, a law firm. And they, right when Donald Trump became president, they came in and they did I don't know what I would call it, an audit, but they looked at the practices of the payroll and the accounting department. And they're like, you guys got to clean this up. Like it was a disaster. And we saw a trial where, they were convicted of having kind of sketchy accounting practices.
Well, but so just to be clear, so we're talking about the intent to mess around with this is enough.
You need the intent to defraud, and then you need an intent to commit a crime or aid and conceal a crime. You don't actually have to commit the crime. You just have to have the intent to commit the crime.
I guess it just, and this has been noted in a lot of outlets today, part of that fraud was paying more taxes than were really technically due. Is that right? I mean, just because this was Michael, in theory, right, if we bring that graphic back up, this was Michael Cohen. This was them basically grossing up, as it is termed.
If Michael Cohen
claimed it
on his taxes. And remember, he went to jail, and part of it was for failure to pay income tax. We don't have a lot of details on what he failed to pay income tax on. We just don't know what Michael Cohen did at the other end. But potentially, there could have been an overpayment.
An overpayment of taxes.
The DA's office knows what he did.
Yes.
So the royal we don't, but the DA's office, I'm sure you did. Otherwise, they would not be using him as a witness. They have to know what he did.
Are we going to find out all of this in the discovery process?
In the discovery process, and clearly when it goes to trial, It's going to be a direct examination, and the district attorney is going to have to bring out all of Mr. Cohen's bad acts before he gets cross-examined on them. It's going to come out in the direct examination.
Well, discovery has to be filed in 35 days, right?
It's 30, when it's voluminous, it's 65 days.
Oh.
They are now, this is the reason why it's such a long adjourn date. They're now discussing the discovery. There's also a request, which I've only seen in violent criminal enterprise cases, for protective order to limit what Mr. Trump can actually see alone. They're asking that he be in his attorney's office at the time that he sees the documents. Mr. Tacopina yesterday, I read the transcript, said, hold on, we didn't agree to that. We're going to be in his office to view the documents. So I think there's going to be a dispute over that between the defense and the prosecutor.
Yeah.